An eye for an eye, they say, would leave the whole world blind. But whose eyes deserves to be damaged? What if we give people double of all the troubles they cause us? What if we turn the table and become the thorn on our enemy's flesh? The story of Ummah is that of a girl who stood up for herself and said, "Never again will I be a punching bag." Join us in this thrilling adventure.
Hello story lovers, welcome to Nana's Fairy Tales, where we share amazing and interesting stories. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to get notified when we upload another enchanting tale.
Amadi sat in his compound, surrounded by the calm breeze that caresses his body once in a while deliberating on how he would raise his only daughter all by himself after his wife Ifoma left him to join her ancestors. Amadi had heard news of men whose second wives maltreat the children they had with their first wives, just because these women have for one reason or the other been absent in their children's lives. Amadi doesn't want his adorable daughter Umma to go through such. After Umma's mother died when Umma was little, Amadi has been raising his daughter all by himself. But it was really taxing and difficult as he couldn't keep up with the steady cooking, doing the laundry and taking care of Umma. Amadi adores and cherishes his daughter so much. People have advised him to get another wife who would bear him an heir and as well take care of Umma. The idea doesn't sit well with Amadi because his daughter is so used to him that she can't stay with anyone else. Amadi carries her everywhere, to the farm, to his kinsmen meeting, even to the bar when going for a drink with his friends. His friends advised him not to be taking the little girl everywhere. They told him to get a new wife who would be nursing Umma at home while he goes about his businesses. One of his friends told him one day, "Amadi, are you not tired of carrying this little girl everywhere? The whole village now knows that you don't have a wife. You take her everywhere like a woman's handbag. Why not get another wife for yourself? You are young. I wonder how you satisfy your manly needs and how you want to live your whole life having just a girl, when you can get married and have as many children as possible." Amadi looked at him and said, "I have heard what you've said, and I have it in mind, but I must confess, it has been difficult making this decision. I don't want a woman that would make life difficult for my child. I don't want her to always be reminded that her mother is no more. I want a safe place for my child. I want her to experience unimaginable love at home. I don't want her to suffer. I've heard what you said. Anyways, I'll try and do the needful." Deep down in Amadi's heart, he knows he doesn't want to get a new wife. He's okay with his only child, but the society's pressure was getting out of hand. Amadi finally got a new wife, Ego. Ego is a beauty to behold. She was said to be one of the most beautiful girls in the village. She's hardworking and a good homekeeper. When Ego entered Amadi's house, she was so nice and warm to Umma because she knows how Amadi values Umma. She was nice to her also because her mother had told her that if she wants to have her own child, she must treat her fellow woman's child well. Ego took Umma everywhere she was going. She cooks with her, bathes her, washes her clothes, and feeds her well. This made Amadi so happy. His fear has been defeated, he thought. He was having a happy home till Ego took in and gave birth to a son. Everything changed. Ego cared less about Umma. She only cares about her son and herself. At first, it wasn't obvious because she was still nursing herself back to life after the child's birth. She would send Mma on heinous task she has never been sent in her life. She would send her to go to the bush and get firewood all by herself. Mma was always scared of going to the bush alone because of snakes and other creepy creatures. But she didn't have a choice. She had to go. Mma began to grow very fast and began to go lame. Her father noticed, but whenever he approaches Ego, she would yell at him, "Mma is not a child anymore. She should be able to do these things. You are just spoiling that girl for nothing." Amadi wouldn't know what to say. He would just tell Mma to keep being obedient to her stepmother for peace to reign in their household. He couldn't shout on Ego. He couldn't take his daughter everywhere he went like before either. She now has a mother figure who would take care of her. At first, it sounded like Ego was truly nurturing Mma to become a hardworking woman. But as time went on, Ego became a thorn on Mma's flesh. Mma would do all the chores in the house, but if she misses any, Ego will either starve her or beat the living daylight out of her eyes. Mma would cry and run to her father, but her father can't shout on his wife for punishing Mma. Otherwise, he would be accused of poorly raising his daughter. One day, Ego listed for Mma all the chores she should do in the house. That day, Mma was very ill. She complained to Ego that she can't do all the chores, that she wasn't feeling too well. Ego became agitated. She rushed at her and started pounding her like a bag of rice. Mma cried, but there was no one to save her. She ended up doing the chores in pain, with the sickness and the pain Ego inflicted on her from the beating. After doing the chores, Ego yelled at her, "You fool! You think you've grown, right? I'm talking and you're talking back at me. There is no food for you today and tomorrow. You would stay hungry so that your brain would reset. Next time, if I send you on an errand, you won't have an excuse." Mma stood, glued to a spot. Hot tears rolled from her eyes. Ego couldn't even pity her in her state. The beating she gave her was not enough. She had the heart to deny her food for 2 days. Mma cried and pleaded with Ego, but Ego raised her voice and sent her out of her presence. That day, Mma lay on her bed. Hunger really sang a bitter song for her that day. All her intestines were hurting her. She held her stomach and cried so hard. That night, hunger kept Mma awake. She reminisced over the time she spent with her father alone, the warmth and comfort she experienced. Mma cried her eyes out. It was of no use telling her father because she already knows the outcome. That night, Mma thought to herself, "What if I fight back? I can't be here crying like a hopeless child. I need to do something. This unfair treatment is getting out of hand." Mma hissed, got up from her bed, sneaked into Ego's kitchen. She sat there, ate to her satisfaction, washed her hands and cleaned her mouth. All this while, she was very careful not to make a noise. Mma sneaked back into her room and felt so good. She said to herself, this is it. If I do good, she would beat me. If I do bad, she will still beat me. So which is better? Let me be doing bad. Let me know that I really deserve all her punishment. And this was the beginning of war in Amadi's house. In the morning, Ego wanted to heat up the food and eat with her son, but she realized that the food has drastically reduced. It wouldn't even be enough for her and her child. She was so surprised. That was the very first time food or any item in the house went missing. She screamed Mma's name. Mma sluggishly went and met her. Ego began, "You fool! You evil child, meant for bad fate like your unlucky mother. How dare you eat my food? Who gave you the guts to do so?" For the first time ever, Mma yelled back at her. She said, "It's you and your son that are meant for bad fate. And point of correction, I didn't eat your food. I ate my father's food, so deal with it. Ego couldn't believe her ears. She ran towards Umma to beat her as usual, but Umma didn't stand there to be beaten like a log of wood like before. She ran. Ego ran after her. She increased her speed and Ego fell face down. She had bruises on her legs and her elbow. Umma laughed with satisfaction. Ego looked at her with bitterness, but the pain on her knees wouldn't let her do anything. In the evening, when Amadi came back, Ego narrated all that happened to Amadi, but skipped the part where she insulted Umma and stabbed her. Amadi was put in a tight corner. He had to punish Umma just to satisfy his wife. Amadi didn't act of Umma's side of the story. He just called her and started flogging her. Umma wept. She was so bitter. This is not her father. The man that she called father would never raise his hand on her. Umma went to bed wailing. It wasn't the beating that was hurting her, but the fact that it was her own loving father who flogged her. Umma went to bed sore and sober. In the morning, she got up very early to go and fetch firewood, which was part of her daily routine. As she packed the woods and was about to put them on her head, her eyes caught Agbara, the devil beans. The villagers called that seed the devil's beans because if it touches your skin will itch the rest of the day. Umma smiled. She laughed and said to herself, for every pain that woman caused me, she would get it double. She took another leaf and carefully plucked the Agbara seed. When she got home, Ego started yelling at her as usual. You sluggish fowl, go and drop that firewood and go and wash the dishes. Go and sweep the compound. Go and harvest cassava. Ego listed out those chores without even giving her a break and without considering that she's still a child. Umma went to the backyard, quietly laid down the woods, went to where Ego kept the water she wants to use and beat, and put those devil beans inside. She put them and brought it out so that it won't be easily noticed. She swept the compound and quickly went to harvest the cassava. On her way, Umma had a second thought. She doesn't want to miss the sight. She hid at a nearby bush and watched. Ego went to take her bath, carried the water and went to the bathroom. It wasn't up to 3 minutes. She ran out of the bathroom screaming on top of her voice. The devil beans Umma put in her bathing water was reacting on her skin. The itching was terrible. Every part of her body was itching, from her head to her toe. Ego nearly ran mad. Umma watched from her hiding place and laughed so hard. The sight was so pleasing and entertaining for her. She quietly left and went to the farm. At the farm, Umma was the happiest person on earth. She reminisced over her stepmother's pain and laughed happily. She said to herself, this is it. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Even the Bible says so. I'll be giving her back to back. For every trouble she gives me, I'll give her double. For every bass, I'll give her double boost. She talked to herself out loud alone in the farm and laughed so hard. At home, Ego sat on the ground scratching her body with anything she lays her hands on. She used broken bottle, knife, wood until some parts of her body started bleeding. It was so painful. She couldn't fathom what was wrong with her. What could be wrong with the water? No one knows. Ego cried. She tried to figure out what could be wrong, but she really can't place her hands on it. Umma came home that day and everywhere was calm and peaceful. Ego couldn't yell at her because she used all her strength to scratch her itchy body. Umma quietly went to the kitchen without saying a word to anybody and ate. It's been a hectic day for her. Harvesting cassava is one of the most tedious jobs ever, and she hates it. When her mother was alive, she only takes her to their vegetable garden. where Mma would run around picking veggies for her mother. That was all she could remember about her mom, and how her mom would always take her along wherever she's going. Mma missed her mother so much. For weeks, there was peace in Amadi's house. But one day, Ego started again. She ordered Mma to go and hawk mangoes in the market. This Mma had never done in her entire life. Mma was so confused. Every day comes with a new kind of wickedness, she muttered to herself. Ego started yelling at her, "You fool! Will you take these mangoes and go and hug them? You won't eat unless you sell all these fruits. And if for any reason you don't sell everything, don't ever return to this house. And if I hear you tell your father anything, I will skin you alive." Telling her father anything was even the least thing on Mma's mind. She already knew her father would support his wife. Mma carried the mangoes, went to the market, sat down at a spot and sold all of them. She was so happy. She wanted to run home and go give Ego the money she had made. But she said to herself, "That woman doesn't deserve this money. Mma, you must be a fool to think that you just wanted to give your enemy your sweat. Mba, that will not happen." Mma went to Mama Ada's shop, the best cook in the village, ordered food with a lot of meat and drink to step it down. She ate with extreme happiness. She was so happy. She hadn't had such a nice meal in a long time. After eating, Mma sat there till it was evening, the time her father do come back from work. Then she started going home. She met her father on the way and they went home together. When Ego saw them together, she began to panic. She thought that Mma had told Amadi where she went to. That night, nobody said anything about Mma hawking. Mma went to sleep that day, the happiest girl in the universe. The next day, when Amadi had gone to work, Ego asked Mma where the money she made from selling the fruits was. Mma said that her father saw her on the road, threw away all the mangoes and told her never to hawk again. Mma told her that she can go and ask her father if she thinks she's lying. Mma knows that Ego would never do such. Ego didn't know what to believe. She didn't know what to say. She just told Mma, "You little witch, you can never do anything perfect. Get out of here." Mma laughed in her heart. She won again. Days ran into months and months ran into years. Mma was gradually turning into an adorable young woman. She turned necks wherever she passes. But her ever wicked stepmother hasn't made life easy for her. Mma on her own side was ever ready for all her troubles. Ego will always say all manner of bad things about Mma to her father. Amadi got tired of the complaints, but there was nothing he could do. One day, Amadi specifically told Mma to make dinner for him. Mma was so glad. She went to the market herself, got all the stuff she needed and began making the soup. Mma was a very nice cook, though no one taught her. Ego refuses to teach her so that she would use it and insult her in the future, but Mma was a very smart girl. Ego was patiently waiting for her to cook rubbish so that she would tell the whole world that Mma can't cook. But Mma disappointed her. She made a very delicious soup and Ego's face was full of envy and jealousy. When Amadi came back, Mma served him the food, waiting to receive some compliments. But instead, her father shouted, "Mma, is it the lick of salt that you fetched for me? What kind of salty food is this? Is it only salt that you cooked?" Mma was so surprised. She ran to where her father was, tasted the food and truly it was salty. Mma couldn't believe it. "This is not what I made," she said. Amadi yelled at her, "Then who made this? Or aren't you the one that served me this food? Girls of your age are amazing chefs and you are still here doing this kind of rubbish in the name of cooking? Is this how you want to embarrass me in your husband's house?" Mma couldn't say a word. She was so ashamed and agitated at the same time. There's only one interpretation to the excess salt at the soup: Ego's doing. She went to bed so sad. She rolled from end to end. She thought so hard on how to pay back, but nothing came to her mind. Mma slept and moved on like nothing happened in the night. She was patient, knowing that her day of payback was going to come. One day, it was Amadi's turn to host his kinsmen. His kinsmen do hold a meeting once in a month, and it was Amadi's turn to host them. Amadi told his wife about it and gave her money to make a delicious soup. Mma woke up that day so excited because she knew it was her turn. She left the house like what will be happening in their home doesn't concern her. She stayed in a friend's house and was perfectly timing Ego. When she saw that the kinsmen were already coming, she sneaked back into the house, went into the kitchen and saw that Ego had already dished the foods. Mma opened each plate. She would sprinkle pepper, pour salt and sand in each of them. When she was done, she went back to her friend's house and started chatting happily. She couldn't wait to start hearing the chaos and noise from her father's compound. Very soon, she saw all the elders of her father's kinsmen angrily leaving, all of them shouting and cursing Ego. Very callous and a useless woman, one said. She can't cook, a married woman, and the news traveled throughout the whole community that Ego nearly poisoned her husband's kinsmen. Ego cried her eyes out. When Mma came back, Ego started cursing her. You evil child, you will suffer greatly. Mma pretended like she didn't know what happened. She said, what have I done again? Ego yelled at her. You fool, you spoiled the food I made for my husband's kinsmen, right? Mma laughed and said to her, one good turn, they say, deserves another. The cup with which you used to measure for someone, same will be used to measure for you. An eye for an eye. These words hurt Ego. She felt like dying. She couldn't beat Mma like before because she had grown into a young woman. She felt like running mad. For the first time ever in their marriage, Amadi yelled at Ego and sent her back to her father's house and told her to remain there till his anger subsides. Mma couldn't be happier. She danced that day all through. It is true that her father was embarrassed, but since Ego was humiliated, she was happy. Ego couldn't stop hitting on Mma. She thought of how to get back at her. After some weeks, Amadi brought back her wife to the house and she's prepared for Mma. She planned on how to pay Mma back. Mma on her own side was ever ready. The story doesn't end here. The drama just got intense. Grab your popcorn and get ready for the next episode of An Eye for an Eye. And once again, what if we treat people the same way they treat us?